Hello all from sunny Brussels. I'm Marta Touykova. I'm the head of sector for youth policy here in DG Education and Culture. Our unit is in charge of the implementation of the youth strategy and following all youth development. Thanks a lot for giving me the opportunity to walk you through the latest developments when it comes to youth mainstreaming and the youth check, which is implemented in the Commission since last year. To start with, I would like to present a bit of the context. I will not go into the detail what is on the slide, but you would see here how important has been the degree of youth mainstreaming increasing in the last year, since 25 years that we are following youth policy at EU level, at the Commission level. In particular, with the current EU youth strategy and the addition of the 11 European youth goals, we see the importance of these different policy areas of concern for young people and their interest. We can see as well that in the last years, especially since the European Year of Youth 2022, the Commission has put a lot of efforts into youth policy, into youth mainstreaming, developing new tools, but as well taking a high-level commitment towards youth policy. This is very clear as well in terms of milestones. So here, this is the press release when the Commission communication on the European Year of Youth of the Legacy was adopted. For those who are not familiar with the Commission jargon, a Commission communication, it's a policy document. It's a high-level document setting up priorities and the kind of commitments about kind of policies and activities. So this is when the Commission took the commitment to, when designing new youth policy, to take into account a youth check, to apply a youth check, taking into account the youth perspective. This was very much a result of broad kind of mobilization discussion through the EU dialogue supported by young people and by youth organizations. So this was a high-level commitment. This document put forward many key actions in terms of youth mainstreaming and youth participation in policy making. This opened as well in very interesting discussions with our partners, the EU member states, and in the Council Youth Working Party. And this ended up with the adoption of a common approach and a definition of what we see as being the youth mainstreaming, both at EU and member states level. This was captured in these Council conclusions adopted during the Spanish presidency. And it shows that incorporating the youth perspective in the policy making, both in terms of designing policy, evaluation and monitoring, to consider the holistic dimension of the youth concerns, of the youth perspective. When it comes to, again, high-level commitment, because the importance of youth mainstreaming, it's as well embedded, when it is embedded and supported at a higher political level, this is what enables concretely to advance on this. And we were very happy from the youth field to notice that the Commission President von der Leyen committed in her political guidelines for the current mandate of the Commission to put this very high on the political agenda, to have young people's voice heard, and to have this especially as well as part of a new Commission portfolio with our Commissioner who is in charge of youth and intergenerational fairness. But as well, this was included in the mission letters of the commissioners. The mission letters, this is kind of a bit of the roadmaps that each commissioner gets at the start of the mandate, and they were asked to hold the policy dialogue during the first 100 days of the commission. So very highly symbolic, important element. These youth policy dialogues are now a permanent feature, and they continue beyond the 100 days. Another very important decision that was taken and they announced in these political guidelines was the setup of the President's Youth Advisory Board to advise the President of the Commission on important topics. I will come back to this. So basically, where this I wanted just to present quickly in this slide as well to provide you an overview of the many youth policy instruments supporting youth mainstreaming in the Commission. And you will see that some of these instruments, some are well known, others were launched more recently, but they allow to feed into the youth perspective in policy making. And as well, some of these instruments allow for direct interaction and exchange and between young people and policymakers. Many of you are familiar with the EU dialogue. Just to mention that during the current cycle, 38,000 young people were consulted on the cycle's topic. But we have other formats. I've mentioned the youth policy dialogues. These are kind of discussions between a commissioner and young people who are selected through open calls and who represent the diversity, and often they are non-organized youth as well. And they feed into they discuss on policy priorities with the commissioners. President's Youth Advisory Board, this is a really high-level advisory board to advise the President of the Commission. This is a representative board where national youth councils are representing the views of thousands of young people. But of course, feeding directly the youth voices is important, but having as well mechanisms to coordinate, to exchange, to kind of advocate for the cross-sectoral dimension in the Commission, it's very important and crucial. This is the role of the youth coordinator, a new position introduced in the current youth strategy. And the youth coordinator is as well chairing the Commission Youth Network. This is a network that we created as part of the legacy of the European Year of Youth. So basically, we have correspondents, allies in all Commission services that bring forward the youth dimension in their policy fields, and they're mobilized to implement the youth check. We have as well the EU stakeholders group bringing together 100 participants, national youth councils, as well as national authorities and 40 European youth level organizations. And this all feed into the youth check. I will come to that in a minute. Working with and for young people and considering it cannot happen without knowing what are their main concerns, how is the situation of young people. And for that, we need research, we need evidence. And here comes, of course, the Youth Wiki, the work of the partnership, the Youth Dashboard, and we report every 2 years in our youth report. But as well, what is very important is to empower young people, to make sure that they have the right skills, they develop, etc. And this